Greetings. Nowadays, human rights abuses are the major concern for a great many people in the world. Human rights are rights most important to everyone. As its name suggests, all human beings regardless of race, gender, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status must have equal rights to live their life peacefully. These are fundamental to every individual is inherently entitled, just because he or she is a human being. These rights are protected by law, and it is more and more important for everyone to safeguard against their rights.
Okay, we will talk about history of human rights. After World War II in 1948, United Nations determined the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as the scope to protect human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as known as UDHR, and is drafted by representatives from all regions of the world. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was proclaimed by UN General Assembly in Paris on December 10, 1948, as a common standard of achievements for all people and all nations. Since the adoption in 1948, the UDHR has been translated more than 501 languages. It becomes the most translated document in the world. The UDHR distributes rights and freedom more 40 groups such as right to live free, right to freedom of thought, and right to freedom of move or any more. UN established institution for encourage the UDHR National Human Rights Institution, as known as NHRI, work to build fair, justice, and inclusive communities with violence and discriminations. NHRI independent institution established for protections and to hold governments to report for their human rights obligations. Their role are monitoring the human rights situation in every country, delivering human rights education programs, and engaging with the international human rights community.
Okay, the world's inequalities are constantly growing. Millions of people continue to suffer from forced evictions, inadequate access to education and basic health treatment, and appalling working conditions. Economic actors, especially multinational corporations, have acquired increased power in the past decades. Liberalization of trade and investment flow, protection grants to foreign investors, and high degrees of dependency between the world's economies, but also foreign debt and policies for international financial institutions have restrained the ability of states to uphold their human rights obligations. Human rights defenders and those participating in protests denouncing corporate abuse are being increasingly targeted. Communities struggle to obtain justice for violations of economic, social, and cultural rights, even more so when involving multinational companies that operate across national borders. FIDH advocates for the full recognition and justiciability of economic, social, and cultural rights, and campaigns for the ratification of the optional protocol to the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Together with its member organizations, FIDH works with communities throughout the world to ensure corporate accountability and improve victims' access to justice through documentation, advocacy, and litigation. FIDH calls on states to take their human rights obligations into account when they negotiate trade and investment agreements with third countries and promote respect for human rights and environment in investment. There are so many gaps in the international rights framework to prevent sanctions and remedy abuse caused by the activities of business enterprise. Access to justice remains particularly difficult for the majority of victims. That's why FIDH is engaged in the international legally binding instruments and regulates the activities of corporations in relation to human rights.
Well, in cases of Thailand, since the coup, NCPO or Thailand's National Council of Peace and Order still failed in upholding human rights and restoring democratic rule, which the Prime Minister made a promise at the United Nations and other countries. The repression of the media, civil, political liberties, and the imprisonment of political dissidents did not end. Recently, in the 2014 Constitution, Section 44 allows the chairman of NCPO to wield absolute power without oversight or accountabilities. Also, 2017 Constitution supports the continuance of this power, guaranteeing that both NCPO and the officials operating under its orders cannot be held accountable for their rights violations. Plus, the new constitution lays the foundation of prolonged military rule, even after the election, by allowing unelected senates to hold seats. In freedom of expression, media still faces intimidation, punishment from the NCPO if they publicize something sensitive to the national security or criticize the government or the monarchy. A music group named Rap Against Dictatorship produced a song Pratet Kubi, was accused of presenting false information in the song, constituting a national security threat and jeopardizing Thailand's reputation by NCPO and the police authority. An investigation is underway aimed at potentially prosecuting members of the rap group and their production team for serious criminal offenses, including sedition under Article 116 of the Penal Code, violation of the Computer-Related Crime Act, and violating the NCPO's ban on political activity and the criticism of military rule. Authorities also threaten to punish anyone who shares the song, the music video, on social media platform. On September 2018, police arrested 12 Facebook users from across Thailand under the Computer-Related Crime Act for sharing information about the alleged rape of the 19-year-old British tourist. In June 2018, on Koh Tao Island, arrest warrants were also issued against Susan Emery, British publisher of the online newspaper Samui Times, and the Thai-American administrator of the Facebook page, for reporting the story and raising concerns about the quality of the police work. According to the information provided by the police, investigating officers in this case have never interviewed the victim or conducted examination of the evidence. Yet the police announced that no rape happened. On May 22, 2018, a peaceful rally was held in front of the United Nations compound in Bangkok to mark the 4th anniversary of the 2014 military coup. Police broke up the rally and arrested leaders and members of the We Want Election movement after they read a statement calling for the ruling National Council for Peace and Order, or the NCPO, to lift all restrictions on fundamental freedoms and hold promised elections. On November, Thai security forces violently dispersed a peaceful protest in Songkhla province and stopped protesters from submitting a petition to the Prime Minister against the construction of a coal-fired power plant. At least 16 protest leaders were arrested without warnings or alarms. Thai rights activists were detained in the military camp in deep south of Thailand without access to a lawyer or effective safeguards against mistreatment. The Thai government's use of the Martial Law Act in the southern border provinces has long enabled the military to violate the basic rights of the detainees. This law provides military authorities with legal immunity and broad powers to detain individuals without charge in informal places of detention for up to 7 days. There is no effective legal oversight or prompt access to legal counsel and family members. Since the coup, authorities have arrested at least 105 people on less majestic charges, mostly for posting or sharing critical commentary online about the monarchy. Some have been sentenced to the decades of imprisonment, including a man sent to prison in June for 35 years, but a 50% reduction of the original sentence because he confessed to the alleged crime, based on the 10 critical Facebook posts.
Also, under NCPO Orders 3 2015 and 13 2016, military authorities can secretly detain people for a wide range of offenses and hold them up for some 7 days without charge, access to lawyers, or any safeguards against mistreatment. The government also regularly uses military detention in which abuses during interrogation occur with impunity. In its counter-insurgency operation against suspected separatist insurgents in the southern border provinces of Pattani, Yala, and Narathiwat, the NCPO in 2017 rejected to disclose information about persons held in secret military detention and summarily dismissed all allegations that soldiers tortured detainees. To human rights groups, the junta did not move 369 cases involving the persecution of approximately 1,800 civilians out of military courts and into the civilian courts as required by international law. The NCPO continued to summon members of the opposition Pheu Thai Party and the United Front for Democracy Against Dictatorship or UDD, as well as anyone accused of opposing military rule for attitude adjustment. Failure to report to the junta's summons is considered a criminal offense. In spite of evidence showing that soldiers were responsible for most casualties during the 2010 political confrontations with the UDD or Red Shirts that left at least 90 dead and more than 2,000 injured, no military personnel or officials from the government of former Prime Minister Abhisit Vejjajiva have been charged for killing and wounding civilians at the time. On the other hand, numerous UDD leaders and supporters face serious criminal charges for their street protests in 2010. As you can tell, Thailand still has a lot of issues. The government still only has concern about its security, not the people. Even amongst the people, only a few interested in the issues. Maybe because of the ignorance of the fear of being persecuted, but eventually it will come everyone's attention when their lives are affected. Maybe it's too late when the time comes.